Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Before we get started today, I want to tell you guys about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is the Free State Project. The Free State Project is an organization dedicated to living the principles of liberty. It was founded in 2001 with the principle being, let's all pledge to move together to a single location and form communities and change the state that we're in. The state they chose is New Hampshire. Over 4,300 have already moved. Wherever you go in New Hampshire, you're going to find someone who's living the principles of liberty that you share. It's wonderful. They sponsor Pork Fest, which I've spoken at. They've got an active jury outreach program. They have civil disobedience regularly. Groups regularly gather to publicly smoke marijuana, conduct open carry litter pickups, film police encounters. They detour traffic prior to police checkpoints. New Hampshire has a small population with a live free or die culture. It's a natural designation for freedom lovers. If you go to fsp.org/join, you will learn more about this great organization. That's FSP, freestateproject.org/join. There's so much information there. You know your life sucks and you need a change. Go to fsp.org/join and learn more about why the Free State Project might be right for you. Now let's start the show. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here, and let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have a very special guest with us, Brandon Straka, who's the head of the Walkaway Campaign. We're starting early because you got to get on a train.
Yes. I'm sorry. I really feel bad. I feel like I came in here like a total diva.
You did. Let's talk about this because I love it. Because
Okay.
I love any divahood. First of all, in preparation for this interview, I was listening to Kelly Clarkson on repeat on the way here. So I missed your text.
Thank you.
I got your call.
This coffee is too hot.
Yeah, the coffee. Okay, so the issue was there wasn't enough half and half, so you wanted 3/4 and a quarter. Then the coffee was too cold.
Correct.
But
No, it's actually really perfect now.
Goldilocks.
Yeah.
It's the Goldilocks situation.
It's just
but in all
right.
seriousness, you're the head of something that's kind of a big deal and it's something that's really interesting and important. Let's explain to people what the Walkway Campaign is.
Sure. So I'm a former liberal, and I voted Democrat my whole life for the very sound reason that I'm gay. And that's why, obviously that's how you should vote. If you're gay, you're Democrat, right? Well, I started kind of putting two and two together after the election of Donald Trump because I voted for Hillary and I was horrified and devastated, like a lot of people, thinking that the sky was going to fall because America had just elected the second coming of Hitler.
Right.
And
But Hitler was pro-gay in many ways, actually.
Some people say he was gay.
Yeah.
I don't buy it, but it's not a very gay mustache. I don't think.
Yeah, it is.
think?
Maybe if it was a wider.
Yeah.
He's starting the mustache.
Yeah, I think I've been living in New York for too long. It's like if it's not like a handlebar, it's
Right.
just, But anyway, so the election of Donald Trump led to the revelation for me. This is the Reader's Digest version. Led to the revelation of how duplicitous and dishonest the liberal media is, and once I discovered that, it became very crystal clear to me the way that they manipulate and use minorities in America. And to be clear, for me, it's not just about minorities, but I really focus on that because that was the reason why I was voting. It was my minority status that drove me to the voting booth to pull the lever for anything with a D beside it. And so when I discovered that they were actually lying and manipulating, what?
You like the D.
I like exactly. No, I love the D, and but I don't like the D anymore. I mean, not that.
Yeah,
D.
yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the question I had for you. This is something I can't wrap my head around. Let's talk about your former self. Mm-hmm. The Clintons put forth the Defense of Marriage Act.
Yeah.
Right? Which was probably the biggest piece of anti-gay legislation at federal level for a very long time.
Right.
Also, in 2004, I don't know if you know this, when John Kerry went to Bill Clinton for advice on how to beat George Bush, Bill Clinton told him, run against gay marriage. And John Kerry said, fuck you, I'm not going to do that. And he lost. So for them, who are probably the biggest gay baiters on the left, because there's plenty of people on the left who were like kind of kept their mouth shut. Obama, you knew he was a closet, gay rights person. That was not pretty obvious. How did you reconcile that with supporting Hillary?
Well, okay, so I think if you're a liberal, you allow a lot of concessions. Like you're willing to give a lot of credit to people for their ability to evolve. I mean, that's Obama evolved. Hillary said that she evolved. And it's funny because we don't really allow conservatives to evolve. Conservatives are damned eternally for any decisions that they ever made, even if they're 30 or 40 years old. But essentially that's it. Was just that this was, and also, you're causing me to have to kind of think back to that time. I think that we allowed, we knew, just like you said, that Obama was probably a closet supporter, Hillary was probably a closet supporter, but that for political reasons they couldn't say so out loud, but they were really secretly on our side, and that if we just supported them in time, they'd be able to, do the right thing, and that's what we thought.
Do you really think Hillary was a closet gay rights person? I think she was a closet homophobe. I think the homophobia is the real her, given her background.
It's quite possible. I don't think she stands for anything.
Yeah. Okay, that's a fair perspective.
Yeah, I think that she just sort of watches the trends and says, okay, now I support that, now I support that, she's just following trends.
Did you ever see the interview she did with Terry Gross from NPR about this issue?
Probably, but I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Terry Gross, NPR, which is that alt-right, far-right, Nazi white supremacist radio site. Terry Gross said, hey, Hillary, when you were senator, you very clearly said marriage between a man and woman. I don't believe in it. Now your views have changed. Walk us through that. Have you evolved because America's evolved? Hillary,
she got very defensive.
Flipped her shit.
Yeah, yes.
She actually says, no, you're saying I'm lying for political purposes. And Terry goes, no, I'm not saying that, but explain. This is a change.
It's a reasonable question.
And she goes, no, that's not what you're doing. And it's the most, first of all, if you're going to be Hillary Clinton, you're a pro at politics.
Right.
It is the most amateurish, insane.
Cringy.
Moment. And this is why this woman didn't have press conferences, because as soon as NPR, of all places, asks her a softball, she flips her shit.
Yes, and you're exactly right. That was totally a softball, because I don't know what she was thinking, because she simply should have just said, look, I did the best I could at the time with the information that I had, but upon, receiving more information, more education, I actually realized I was wrong. I mean, that's actually a symbol of strength from a politician. Look, I know more now than I did before, and I've changed my mind. Great.
In 2000, when she ran for Senate, she did something called a listening tour, right? She's like, I'm not a New Yorker. So she went around New York and pretended to listen to different New Yorkers. She goes, oh, I'm learning. So she could have said, yeah, you know what? The more people I met who came out, who said, hey, I want to get married, and it's the same as you and your husband have. And yeah, my marriage has been through a tough time. Ha, ha, ha. And, and it's the story plays out, and and it was so ham-fisted and weird.
I remember that. Yes, I did see that. And you're right. It really was. And she totally blew, I think, a really good opportunity to knock it out of the park with an answer.
So are you friends with Chadwick Moore?
No.
Okay. Chadwick Moore is a big pro.
I know who he is. I'm just not friends with him.
Oh. All right. This is when I put the nail polish emoji on. What's the drama?
Well,
let me tell the backstory here before I ask the question. Why I'm not just setting you up, because I didn't know that there was anything there. I ran to Chadwick on the train. We follow each other on Twitter, and he had written a couple of articles, and he confirmed this when I ran into him, that there have been gay bars in the city, like his home bar, that kicked him out because he's a Trump supporter, and you being here is making me uncomfortable. It's not like he was there with a big sign or a MAGA cap.
Right.
And I was wondering if you had, before we get to Chadwick, if you had the same kind of situation in the backlash.
Well, okay, that's an interesting question right out of the gate, because that supposes that what he's saying is accurate and true.
Oh, God, this is my favorite interview ever.
Okay. Well, I mean, these things have a way of always happening to Chadwick.
Okay.
That don't seem to happen to a lot of other people.
Well, that's good that they don't happen to other people.
I don't think they happen to any people.
No, but I'm saying that's a good thing.
I'm not saying that people don't get attacked for wearing MAGA hats. Let's be clear about that. That's even happened to me.
If we live in a city, New York, where people aren't getting kicked out of the bar because of their political support, I think that's great. That's what my takeaway here, the bigger takeaway.
Well, I'm not even necessarily saying that either, because that has happened.
Okay.
That has happened. But I believe in certain circumstances, like the ones you're describing, that there's probably a little bit more provocation that's taking place than simply, slid into the bar, for a glass of rosé, and they all started attacking me and threw me out of the bar. I mean, I know this person personally, and this is I don't buy that version of the story.
Okay, good. I would rather have it be the scenario you're describing, the scenario he's describing.
Right.
Okay. I'm not trying to start beef.
No, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it too. I mean, it's not even a long story,
You
but
don't seem happy.
Well, I mean, I feel like I deserve to talk about it because
Please.
I've never really, had the other side talked about. I met him a year ago at this time. He came to my home. That's when I met him for the first time. I threw a party because I had not started Walkaway. I was not Brandon Straka, the Walkway person. I was just a Brandon Straka hairstylist living on the Lower East Side. I had walked away from the Democratic Party. I'd lost the majority of my friends. I had gone through most of 2017 extremely lonely and kind of destroyed because, first of all, it's incredibly unsettling to have your entire political or your whole belief system turned upside down.
Of course.
And then on top of that, to lose your friends in the process. I mean, it's not even like I could turn to my best friends and be like, I'm going through this really weird thing. They were all just like, shut up, we hate you, now.
It's horrible.
It was horrible. So I around the beginning of 2018 started to meet a couple, I mean, literally like one or two gay conservatives. And through them, they knew some others. And one of them suggested to me, let's have a party. Like, let's introduce you to a lot of people so you can, begin to make friends. And so I threw a party at my apartment on the Lower East Side. And he was one of my guests, and he showed up. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of the things that he said I was uncomfortable with, but that's okay. Like, I don't need to, love everything that everybody says. I mean, I didn't really get this vibe that he and I were probably ever going to be good friends, but he was a guest in my house, and there was no problem. We hugged each other, said, it was great to meet you, left. And then after that, about a month later, we had another party, which he showed up at. Same thing, had a lovely experience, talked with each other. Again, probably not totally my cup of tea, but no big deal. It was great.
Yeah, it's a party. You don't have to be friends with everybody.
Totally. Absolutely no problems whatsoever. And then fast forward about another month after that, I started the Walkway Campaign. And within it exploded very quickly. So that was in May 26th of 2018, I started the campaign. By summertime, I was doing Fox News, and the campaign was really taking flight. And he decided to get on social media, and it went on for about 2 or 3 days, and say that I was stealing, that this was a scam.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't know any of this.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, wow. Holy shit. I didn't realize what a can of worms I opened.
Making fun of me for trademarking the hashtag, but I mean, literally saying that all because people were donating to this cause.
Sure,
which,
of course.
And we're using these funds quite, we're doing these major events. And so, but by the way, I've never to this day, drawn a salary or collected for all intents and purposes. I'm a volunteer for the Walkaway Campaign. I do make money going around the country doing speaking engagements and stuff now. Thank God, I have a means to support myself besides doing hair. It was getting kind of hard, like doing blowouts and running the Walkaway Campaign. But I've never, drawn a salary or made any money or taken money from the campaign. I hope that changes at some point. I would love to draw a salary. We're just not there yet. Anyway, he got on social media and said to anybody who's donating this campaign, it's going right into this hairstylist pockets, and but
you have receipts. You put on events. Events aren't cheap,
right?
If I wanted to make the claim, you could actually be Whitney and pull out the receipts.
I actually could pull out the receipts, and so this went on for 3 days, and people were not happy about it. I mean, like, people were really defending me, but he just kind of doubled down and kind of kept at it, and then. There was one more thing that happened, which I can't remember right now, but on my birthday last year, which is in December, there was a Christmas party that was being thrown at a gay bar uptown, and I went, and that's where I met Milo for the first time, and he showed up with Milo, and I was very nervous to meet Milo because those two are so close.
Right.
And I thought to myself, this is going to be just awful because there's going to be two of them, and, for all intents and purposes, I think Milo's a more powerful figure. And I just thought this is going to be so ugly because I'm going to have the two of them kind of just degrading me at this part. But I was like, can I swear?
Of course.
I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go to this party anyway, because whatever, I'm going to go. So I came, Milo showed up, could not have been lovelier. Yeah. I mean,
he's a charmer.
So nice.
He's very charming.
So gracious to me. He gave me a card that he had written months before. He was like, this never got to you, but I wrote this to you in July. And he was lovely. And that night, Milo kind of facilitated Chadwick and I talking a little bit, and I gave Chadwick a hug. And I just said, you and I need to talk. And he said, yeah, I get it. And, but I was like, at that point, I was kind of willing to say, perhaps this can be the start of putting it past the bus. The next fucking day, he gets on Facebook.
No.
Yes. And he said something about, like, unlike certain people who trademark hashtags and whatever. I'm like, you just can't help yourself, can you? You just get, so I've kind of given up on that relationship.
Oh, God. That was
not that I ever had any hope for it in the first place.
You had a little bit of hope, and you should have had a little bit of hope. I don't blame you for having a little bit of hope.
But I don't like getting lumped into this. I understand it. Like, I'm not offended, but like, people think that I think just because you're gay and you're conservative, because we're a small pool, that we're all like, meeting for brunch on Sunday and, in love with each other. And the truth is, honestly, the truth is I probably get more shit from gay conservatives than from gay liberals.
Well, now I have to ask.
The public figure ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones calling me, screaming at me all the time. Why didn't you add me to your panel?
There's actually, there's one I have to ask about then.
Oh,
so
God.
I don't know if there's any back. Who?
Oh, well, it could be one of two, and I don't like either one of them.
You don't like Lucien?
No. Okay, that is who I thought you were talking about.
Oh, that's my phone. My ringtone, by the way, I forgot to turn my phone off, is Hillary Clinton laughing. Go ahead. Sorry, that was very unprofessional.
No, I do like Lucien. And he's another one.
Lucien found. Let me explain to the audience. Lucien founded Twinks for Trump, and him and Milo kind of had a falling out.
Yeah. Well, so Lucien, I do like Lucien, and I think that he's. I like him from afar. And I think that's the way it's probably always going to have to be. He and I are very different people. He's very okay. Here's what I like about him. I met him in person months ago. We got together in the West Village because I wanted to meet him. I did feel like there was a wall. He doesn't. I at least with me, he didn't want to. He didn't really want to be friends. Okay. I think he wanted to sniff each other out, and and that's fine. We hung out that night. I didn't feel like we bonded, although I wanted to.
Sure.
And then the next time I saw him was at a conference in DC that we were both at. I won an award at that conference. I was given the award for the first ever Red Pill Award at this conference. That is going to be a yearly award that's given out.
What's the conference?
It's called American Priority Conference. It was the first year that they did it. It was a great conference. It was very poorly attended because I think it wasn't marketed well, but it was a great conference, like in terms of like actual, what it was. Like
I'm writing a book about red pilling, and I've never heard of it, so they were not.
Oh, it's brand new.
Well.
Yeah, and they're going to do their second one in October. And I think that they learned hopefully from and it'll be better this time around. But he was there. I had a good time with him. I mean, I think he's like, to me, he's that guy at the party who has too much to drink and he kind of acts like a buffoon, but he's actually legitimately funny and he's very entertaining. But he's ethereal. I can't, at least for me, there was no bonding. You can't really break through to him. Now, we did the LGBT town hall here in New York City, March 28th. And he called me on March 29th, screaming at me about not including him on my panel. And, I just said, I'm not quite sure why you feel entitled to be on my panel. And he just said to me, there's not that many of us, and frankly, I think it's weird that you didn't include me on this panel and whatever. And I was like, Lucien.
He said weird? He didn't say queer?
He said weird.
He should have said queer.
And he used the word weird like 10 times.
But that's a lefty device to say weird, to stigmatize people who are different. I hate that word.
Weird?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I just said, Lucien, I don't ever hear from you. I was like, you're not like, if you called me every once in a while, or even shot me a text message every now and then, you would be in the orbit of my brain, and then it would occur to me, but like, I usually work with people, who are nice to me. Yeah, that's kind
Fair.
of yeah. That's usually one of my prerequisites is that you don't attack me on social media
or at least neutral. Just be neutral to me. I don't even
right.
need nice.
Yeah, and and so he was very upset that I didn't include him on my panel.
But here, if you're not including someone on a panel, why would yelling at them get them booked the next time? I don't understand that.
That was precisely the question that I asked him. And then I think I could actually see a change coming over him because as I said, this is not, this behavior that I'm seeing right now is not what I want to deal with when I'm on stage in front of an audience. Like, I want to know that my panel is my team, that we support each other, that we have each other's backs. And, and that's the other thing too, is, come on, let's be honest. Like some of these guys, probably care more about their own individual brand than they care about being a teammate. And I care about both. I care about my individual brand, but when I'm on a team, I'm on a team. It's not about Brandon Straka. It's not about whatever. It's about how can I support everybody else on stage? Because frankly, we're going into an environment where we're going to be facing a hostile crowd.
Very much. You would love divide and conquer. They would love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would support Chadwick if we were on a panel together. Well, no, I wouldn't.
I'm going to ask about
kidding.
someone who I know you're going to have positive things to say about. Okay, we're going to end on a positive note.
Okay.
I've never met her, but Blair White and I follow each other on Twitter. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Positivity.
Yes.
Tell me, I know you're doing at least one event with her.
And the second in less than 2 weeks.
Okay. Let's talk about that event.
Love Blair.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna.
Yeah.
And tell me about.
I don't hate everybody. In fact, I don't hate most people. You chose. You just tapped into the that spot.
It's a gift.
And I don't hate Lucien, and I don't hate Chadwick. Just to be clear, hate is a strong word.
Well, those seem like strong feelings.
I'm very passionate.
Listen, in all seriousness, if my rule is I don't go after my own, and I don't call out people on Twitter or publicly ever. If I have a problem with someone, I'll take it out privately, at the very least because it's good strategy. If I call you out on Twitter, you're backed up against the wall because if you admit what I'm doing, you're encouraging my behavior. So it doesn't work on any level.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm an anarchist, right? So I swim in anarchist circles, and I had two people in here from two different wings. And they sat down and they broke bread. And my mentality is I'd much rather be a bridge builder than a bomb thrower when it's people who are even any sense are on the same team as me.
Yeah.
So it's very sad for me to hear that this happened.
It happens more often than you think. And there are certainly a lot worse examples. I think I've said enough today. I'm probably not going to, I'm not going to get into any more. But I mean, it's sad that... a lot of the conservatives will tell you, like, oh, we're all on the same side. We all have the same goals. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's true. We do have the same goals, but that doesn't mean you can't work with people who stab you in the back.
That's not in the back. It's not
even
in the back.
Guys who stab you in the front.
Yeah. Oscar Wilde said a friend is someone who stabs you in the front. But I mean, stabbing in the back is behind the scenes. Even that you can work around, baby. But this is, I mean, public call-out culture. That is the leftism at its worst.
Right.
That technique.
I agree.
You're here from the Walkaway Campaign advocating people vote for Republicans. Mm-hmm. Can you think of a legitimate reason why someone would still vote for the Democrats?
I think that it could be argued that they have an appealing position on environment.
How so?
Well, I mean, I think that conservatives are they reject so strongly the whole concept of climate change that, they see it as such a globalist position, which I think it largely is, that they don't really even budge an inch on climate and environment, when in fact, I think that we should all be kind of in a bipartisan way, taking a good look at our environment and what we can be doing better.
Heshi Socks, HESHI socks.com. Promo code is welcome30. You get 30% off. Why do I love my Heshi socks? Why do I wear them every day at my house? Because whether you're going for a hike, not doing it, a ride, I don't even know what that is, at the gym, okay, that's me. Playing ball, ugh, God. Stuck in the office, have fun, losers. Or chilling on the couch, I have a recliner. They make sure your feet are comfortable and don't stink, because they have high-end Pima cotton, which is very breathable in the warm weather, but they're also treated with antimicrobial properties to keep them smelling right. They've got arch support. You got the dress socks. You got the fancy socks. You got the basic socks. If you go to heshisocks.com and use promo code welcome30, you're going to get 30% off. They're the most comfortable, kick-ass fashion socks you can get for work or play. And here's the thing. They last. Not like those cheap socks that wear out in the heel, which I've been through many of those. Go to heshisocks.com and you'll be telling me you are welcome. Let's talk about this. So as some of my viewers know, I have IAs a lot, imaginary arguments.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah, and before we met, I had a big IA with you,
okay,
which we talked about on Twitter, which is Chad Felix Green, who I have no beef with. Uh-huh. Chad, I'm sure he's going to listen to this. You're welcome to come on the show and discuss this. Some things he says did not make sense to me, so I'm engaging with his ideas. Mm-hmm. And he had an article in The Federalist basically saying conservatives today are treated like gay people used to be back in the day. And it's part of this whole Candace Owens thing, like, it's get off the plantation.
Right.
And I thought you were going to be like, rah, rah, rah. And you went ham.
I did.
And you said exactly what I thought I was going to have to say to you.
Yes.
Do you remember what your response was to his piece? Wait, before you get that, we've got a 30-second clip of Fran Lebowitz. Do you know her?
Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Do you feel that gay rights is progressing in this country to be as equal as, to be part of the civil rights conversation?
First of all, I don't think these things are alike the way other people do. I think there's always been a difference between these things. I think there's a difference between being marginalized and being oppressed. I know every bad thing, believe me. I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm just saying it's not slavery.
All right.
Okay.
So what is your right? She's amazing. What is your response to this kind of right-wing intersectionality, which is like, Candace Owens, get off the plantation. It's the same thing as the gay rights thing. It's the same thing as whatever else.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's a little bit more loaded question than I thought you were going to ask me.
I thought you were unload it. You could rephrase it. I'm not trying to be loaded here.
No. Let's start it just a little bit smaller with why don't we just talk about the tweet?
Yeah, sure.
And start there.
Yeah.
And then we can build on that.
Yeah.
So the tweet that she had put out was saying there were several. She does this on purpose, though. By the way, she's incredibly verbal. And
you almost said it. You almost said the articulate word.
No.
I caught it.
Oh, are you going to do that thing where, if you call a black person articulate, you're No. But the reason I took the word back was not because of that, but it's because there is a difference, I think, between articulate and verbal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's articulate means that you have the ability to articulate and communicate well, whatever. Verbal is like when I think you really choose words in a very specific way to evoke a certain reaction.
Yeah.
That's my definition.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So she's incredibly verbal, I think, in the sense that she formulates her thoughts brilliantly in a way to elicit a certain reaction. I think that's her greatest skill. And so I don't think that anything happens by accident with her necessarily. Maybe the Hitler thing was an accident, but so I believe that she said without question. That's how she started it, which already I was like, ooh. Nothing is without question.
Yeah,
there's nothing in this world without question.
And you don't get to decide that for me.
Yeah, correct. She said something about, without question, being a conservative today is like being gay in the 80s. Now, there's a lot happening. There are a lot of moving pieces there. So I may have been a little bit like, if she had just left it as being gay.
Right.
Being gay. Because I think being gay today is probably easier than being a conservative today or being a Trump supporter today. The other thing that a lot of conservatives do, not just her, a lot of conservatives, Wait,
you're living it. You lost your friends.
Yeah.
You're paying the price. This is exactly a parallel would have been if she had just said broadly being gay.
Right. But also being gay was an incredibly unpleasant thing even 5 years ago. And certainly 10 years ago. And I think to a certain degree, I think there's a conservative guilt where they don't want to acknowledge that and they want to throw it so far in the rearview mirror as far as they can and be like, oh, back in the 80s. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Because you guys were terrible 5 years ago. Like that, it was not cool. So I do think it's changed. I wouldn't be standing where I stand today. Sure. And I'm a registered Republican now. I consider myself a conservative. And I do that because I think the values make more sense. I think the conservative platform makes more sense. And I think that homophobia is all but eradicated in the United States. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. But it didn't happen over 30, 40 years. Homophobia was pretty rampant 5-10 years ago. And if we're going back to the 80s, horrific. And I mean, we're talking about like a time when gay men were dropping dead and their families were cutting them off. They were dying alone in hospitals because doctors and nurses wouldn't touch us. Right where we're
sitting, in the East Village.
Yeah. Doctors and nurses wouldn't touch gay patients. People were coming to gay funerals with signs saying these people are burning in hell. God hates fags. I mean, because that's not what it's like to wear a MAGA hat. I mean, I've been attacked for wearing a MAGA hat, and it does not feel the same as that.
Yeah.
So let's get a grip.
There's a book I recently read, which I think is the best biography I've read, of David Wojnarowicz, who was an artist from the East Village era. He became an ACT UP activist, and the author, I talked about this in a previous episode, she lived the scene, the early 80s art scene, and the people dropping like flies. And you're a guy who's 27, which is on paper the symbol of health, right? 27-year-old male, fit male. And you sit down and you're told, oh yeah, you're going to be dead in 3 years.
Yes.
There's nothing else you could do about it. And the only people who cared about these perverts, degenerates, because not only were they gay, they were artists. So that's two big strikes against you. Where's the far left?
Yeah.
And is the Pat Buchanans and the Catholic Church who were like, they would talk to them, be like, we're dying.
Right.
Like dying at age 27. We're getting dementia right before we die. It's not as easy. It's not even like a heart attack where you overnight. It's a long, painful process. And they're like, look, we're not going to teach kids that sucking dick's okay. And they're like, do you not understand that we're all dying? And they're like, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
And it was it was very convenient, and it's very disturbing in retrospect, because when you could have any pathology, like a pathogen, for one community, it's really easy for everyone else to be like, well, that's their problem.
Right.
And so for her to make that, specifically the 80s comparison, I found that extremely uninformed and disturbing. So I was glad to see you had the same reaction.
Well, and she has a huge platform. A lot of people listen to her, and what I think disturbed me the most about it is that it's, once again, I think a right-wing version of engaging in this sort of leftist behavior, just like the left, like liberals, progressives will tell you on a daily basis that Donald Trump is like Adolf Hitler, and that conservatives are Nazis, and that we're living, America today is like Nazi Germany in the 1930s or whatever. It's so disrespectful, I think, to denigrate the memory of people who actually lived in, under Nazi rule and died in the Holocaust and went through that, to compare that to Adolf Hitler, whatever. So I think to sort of dismiss the experience, the horrific experience that gay people went through in the 80s, and be like, hey, when you wear your MAGA hat and that person gives you a dirty look at the gas station, that's what it was like to be gay in the 80s. No, it wasn't. And I will absolutely push back against things like that. And we shouldn't even be trying to make these comparisons anyway. Aren't we not supposed to be victims? Aren't we supposed to be victors? I mean, aren't we supposed to be overcome? And also, gay people are like 5% or less of the population at the time, particularly facing 95+% of the population who hated them. Conservatives are a good 50%. You know what I mean? Like, we're not. You can throw a stone and find another conservative, and they'll have your back.
The other thing that she did that I still to this day find very disturbing was this was one of the greatest internet videos of all time, when Candace debated Blair White on Dave Rubin's show, and it was the mother of all shit shows, and she intentionally misgendered her.
Yes.
And I have no problem on paper if someone is anti-trans, right? Like, I could wrap my head around it. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between being that, which we can have a discussion, and you're talking to a trans person and insisting on saying he, because you're doing that intentionally simply to disrespect a person.
Right. That was a very obvious tactic that was used to set the table, to throw Blair at the very beginning. It was ugly. It was very ugly, and it was, honestly, I thought it was incredibly cheap. Because it was like, they were about to go into a debate. And I think if you have to start the debate by throwing the person off, by just absolutely, insulting them and denigrating who they are, what does that have to do with what they were there to discuss? It was intentionally done to demean Blair so that Blair would be distracted when the debate actually started.
But it's also really funny.
Cheap.
It's also really funny to me in the idea that Blair is a YouTuber, public personality. He has a lot of followers, has a big platform. You really think someone that active on Twitter, this is the first time she's been called he? Like,
right.
Really? You don't think she gets to deal with this 50,000 times a day?
Right.
I mean, that's your move?
Right. Well, I think a lot of people don't know that exists for some reason. And because people who do discover that debate end up being like, well, this is not the person who I thought that I liked so much. But
maybe she's evolved, in all fairness. I mean, look, we said it earlier. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
She's never acknowledged it or apologized, but we don't know what she would do.
I think, unfortunately, because of that, she's going to have a very tough time ever winning over the gay community. Maybe she doesn't care. I have no idea. But
you know what the trick is?
What?
You just have to go to gay people and say you're on a plantation, and they're like, "Oh shit, fuck, shit, come, I'll go with you." Like, the idea to me that you're gonna go up to like someone who's like a black doctor or someone in college, be like, "Hey, you're on a plantation," be like, "Who the fuck? Who the fuck you talking? What the fuck?" It's so boomer talk.
It is. I think you have to make a decision. In the end, like, do you want to be effective? And I want to make clear, I'm not saying she's not. She's clearly effective, but what's your strategy and how effective do you really want to be? Because I stopped using language like that, and I didn't use it very much, but when I started to switch over to conservatism, that's how I truly felt. Sort of, I was like, oh wow, they have kind of ghettoized all these different minority groups, and they are lying to us, and they are kind of controlling us, and they're, there's a lot of like brainwashing happening here. And so when I started to hear conservatives talking about plantations and stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. And so then I kind of adopted that language too at first, and then I actually had, like black and not angry like black liberals, but like black conservatives just be like, you're not going to be effective if you use this language. And I stopped immediately. Same with the word Democrat. A lot of conservatives will say Democrat Party. And so I started saying, instead of Democratic, I started saying Democrat Party. And then someone said to me, you're going to turn off people who would otherwise be willing to listen to your message because it comes across as like arrogant and like you're talking down to them. It's a snide jab. It's subtle, but they pick up on it. They know. And so I say Democratic Party again, and I don't talk about plantations. I don't do that because I want to be effective. And by the way, black people love me. Like I'm actually, we're doing these events and I'm communicating, and this is a good, like this, I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because I want it to be a lesson to other white conservatives. You don't have to you can talk to black people, and be white, and they will listen to you. Like black people love good ideas. Brown people love good ideas.
Yeah. Coming from Brooklyn, it's just fascinating. I had Maj Touré on a couple of weeks ago from Black Guns Matter. It is fascinating to me when people who are not from cities, like they don't know how to talk to black people because there's been such a stigma about race, and it's just like they're like, oh my God, I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's really not that hard. But the one piece of advice, you can't open a conversation and say something like, I care about racism too, but I can't say to you, I care about homophobia too, but that's not.
Gay people suck.
You're not engaging with that person's context there.
Yeah.
If someone's worried about Jim Crow coming back, you can't just say, oh, forget it, it's never going to happen. Well, it's not going to be a problem for you. It's a problem for them.
Right.
So they really have to be worried about it.
Yeah.
And you have to give them actual reasons that this is why I genuinely feel this is not a concern as opposed to, oh, don't worry about it. It goes, those are my grandparents.
Yeah.
They lived it. So for you to be like, whatever, those days are over. Well, those days can come back pretty quick.
Yeah. And I don't know who taught white people that personality mirroring is a good and effective strategy.
AOC. What about AOC? This is how organized it look like. The fuck?
I try to tell this all the time too. I mean, okay, so we did we also on March 27th did our very first Harlem town hall, which is obviously geared toward the black community. I live in Harlem, and I believe Harlem's about 67% black. I think it's about 13% Hispanic, and 7% white, something like that. But one of my missions with Walkaway is to try to get as many minorities of all kinds, racial minorities, gender minorities, whatever, to see the truth about what's going on and make your own decision. You don't have to become a Republican. You don't have to love Trump. You don't whatever. But I want to wake you up to the truth about the Democratic Party.
You have choices.
Yes, you have a choice.
You have a choice.
And so, unlike most white conservatives, I realize that you have to go and talk to these people. Like you have to go where they are and talk to them where they are. But a mistake that a lot of white people make is that in order to connect with black people, that they have to suddenly act like what they think black people act like. And it's cringy and it's horrifying. And, it's just like, girl, and I'm like, don't do that. God, please don't.
That's also how they talk to gay people.
It is. It is. No, but the fact of the matter is, when I made the comment earlier about black people love me, what I mean is that I'm just the way I'm talking to you is the way I talk to them. Like when I did the town hall, I was one of the few white people in the room. I was standing there addressing a whole audience, and I was just myself.
Yeah.
Just talking to them the way I'm talking to you right now. And I was saying, listen, guys, let's talk about good ideas. The Democrats are filled with bad the conservative movement, I think, is filled with good ones because it's about empowering this community. And by the way, we got people to change their voter registrations that night. We did voter registration on site. We do this at all our events. And we had 7 black Harlem residents register Republican that night. 5 of them switched from Democrat to Republican.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
And I didn't have to go, girl, to get them to do it.
But did you do it?
I didn't. In the bathroom when I couldn't. I was like, I got to get it out. I got to get it. No.
you're here from the Walkaway Campaign advocating people vote for Republicans. Can you think of a legitimate reason why someone would still vote for the Democrats?
Well, I mean, I think that, the liberal media likes to keep the notion alive that we're still living as we were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and that, we're living in a time where Republicans hate gay people or that they're not accepted on the right. So, I mean, I think that a lot of gay people would probably feel like they're only wanted by Democrats, and so they would be more compelled to vote Democrat because that's the only place they feel safe or welcome.
And here's something I feel very strongly about. All this arguing about social media. Oh, if you don't like it, make your own Twitter. Oh, if you don't like it, make your own PayPal. My position has always been, if you said to someone 5 or 10 years ago, oh, if you don't like it, make your own website, you would have looked like an idiot. Well, now you can really easily. If you go to Wix.com, you could have 500 stunning templates. They have ADI, Artificial Design Intelligence. You answer a few simple questions, they create the site for you. We did it. If you go to letthatbeyourwelcome.com, you can see we used Wix to create a site for the show. You just go to letthatbeyourwelcome.com, you click the link at the bottom, they'll give you 10% off any premium plan. Over 140 million people have built their website using Wix. Oh, you don't like it? Build your own website. Yeah, now you can. It looks great. It promotes your product, and it's easy to do. And you know what else? You can start building your website and publish it for free. Premium plans, 10% off at letthatbeyourwelcome.com. So let's talk about how there's something else Chad wrote, this article that I really disagreed with. And the point he was making, and again, I'm talking about his idea, so I'll be glad to talk to him.
No, I got it out. I got it all out.
No, not Chad Felix Green, not Chad.
Oh, okay. All right.
He had this tweet, and I think this is when I had to unfollow him because I actually got triggered, where he said, historically, it wasn't the people shirtless in gay pride parades that pushed forth gay rights. It was conservatives working behind the scenes. And I'm like, okay, you don't know, this is not the gay history that I'm familiar with. The Mattachine Society, which was the first gay rights organization, I think they even called it Homophile, were Marxists. The Daughters of Bilitis later became the Heads of Now, and they said lesbianism is a political act, that women should be lesbians for political purposes. So this idea that historically conservatism has been hand in hand with gay rights is something I find no evidence for whatsoever. But the question I have for you is David Rakoff, who's the late writer, he wrote for the New York Times and other organizations. I've read one of his books, and he did a piece on the Log Cabin Republicans, which was an early, gay rights Republican group. And they're
still around.
Yeah, are they? Okay,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, all across the country. Yeah,
his whole point is that it's a shame that these talented, smart people are trying to engage with people who they know, as soon as the doors closed, have nothing but contempt and distaste for them.
I see. You're asking how I feel about that?
Yeah, do you think that's accurate? Or is that something that goes through your head? I'm sure a lot
When did he write that?
This was a while ago. He's dead. But the thing is, do you not think there's still some of that, especially in the Republican Party?
Oh, okay. So my answer is going to be a little bit nuanced.
Sure, please.
And, okay, I have to tell you something about me.
Okay.
I base a lot of the decisions that I make and the initiatives that we put out with Walkway based on. I probably shouldn't be revealing this publicly. It kind of makes me out to be an idiot. But I base it about maybe 20-25% on research and facts and information, and mostly on my gut.
Okay.
I mostly go on my gut because I think I'm very intuitive when I think I've got my finger kind of on the pulse of what people are feeling and what's going on and what will work and what won't work. And I don't sit around and just be like, well, statistically this and statistically that. So I think that we need to, it's more
That's
intuitive.
not how changes minds. Minds aren't changed by numbers. They're changed by stories.
Yeah. And the point being, I'm more intuitive in that way. And so my intuition tells me right now, and has been telling me for about a year, and which is not to say this started a year ago, but that's when I had my transition to conservatism, that the Republican Party is kind of splitting and changing. I believe that the Never Trumpers are also the old school,
Yes.
Homophobic, Bible and I'm generalizing here, okay? I want to be really clear, I'm generalizing. I believe that this new brand of Republican Party that Trump is just, steamrolling into motion, whether people like it or not, and they should like it because it's awesome. I think that's the new Republican Party that does not care that much about social issues, but cares about our national sovereignty, cares about the economy, cares about taking care of the working class, cares about all Americans, even if they happen to be heterosexual and white. And doesn't forget about our own people while we're opening the borders to anybody and everybody who wants to come in. And I think that those people couldn't give a fuck if you're gay or straight. I think a lot of them actually at this point recognize that they have gay children, they have gay grandchildren, they have their neighbors gay, their boss is gay, their whatever. And so I believe that there probably was a time that these people in, Log Cabin Republicans, there was also a group called Go Proud. Do you know of them?
Yeah, I think, wasn't Coulter working with them?
Ann Coulter?
Yeah. I think she was.
I don't know
sure.
that she was working with them. I think that there was a connection there.
Sure,
I think that there was a guy
friends with them,
who was one of the leaders of it. His name was, I'll screw this up, Jimmy DeSalva something. But I think that he had a relationship with her. I don't know what her involvement was. But, there was a time when Go Proud.
By the way, it has the worst name because you don't know how to pronounce it because it's GOPROUD. So is it GOP Roud or Go Proud? It's impossible to.
That's funny. I actually liked it. I thought it was really clever. GOP and Proud, Go Proud. I liked it.
But you're not. I don't know how to pronounce it if I'm just looking at it written.
It's Go Proud. I'm telling you.
Okay.
All right.
Now I know. Hashtag learned.
Well, there was a time when Go Proud was excluded from CPAC.
Right.
I mean, they were actually told that they couldn't. And now I spoke on the main stage at CPAC this year. I mean, we're not where we were, So, I mean, your question, I think that I don't know when that gentleman wrote that article. It was probably true at the time that he wrote that article. I don't think it's true today.
You don't think there's lots of people who are in Republican activists who really find, what about Caitlyn Jenner is another good example, right? Mm-hmm. She was very pro-Trump. She's very outspoken for Trump. On her show, I Am Kate, all her transgender friends were jumping down her throat being like, what are you talking about? You're privileged. You're a monster. She's like, I just think welfare has, inverse but perverse incentives, so on and so forth. She wouldn't be that, articulate or verbal, but that was her point. And then recently she turned on Trump. She goes, it was a fraud. He's basically, waging war in our community. And the way she on paper, if you have her speak at the convention, if you have her speak at one of these places, you would think this would draw in a certain type of people, but she is not certainly welcome across the Republican spectrum.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, is that because of her transgender status?
I don't think, first of all, I don't agree, and I want to hear your thoughts. The way people look at gay people and the way people look at trans people, this is not the same. They're put in this envelope together, maybe because historically they're marginalized and friends with each other, but the living as a trans person, living as a gay person, these are not the same phenomenon at all. You're not taking hormones. No,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Certainly the steps that need to be taken, I think, to deal with the condition of transgenderism is obviously very different than being gay. I have a little bit more of. A lot of people will say, oh, the transgender and the gay, they're two different things. Why are they lumped together? I mean, to me, it's not really that big of a leap. I mean, I think that if you talk to most gay people, including myself, I mean, if we look back on our past, I mean, a lot of us as children, kind of identified as being little girls. I mean, I always played with girls. I wanted to play with Barbies. Don't give me a football. I'll, get it away from me.
Are there pictures of you as a kid in a dress?
I was too smart to never be photographed. I mean, this was rural Nebraska. I knew what was up. I told you I'm intuitive. Even at 3 years old, I'm like, people are not going to be cool with me running around in makeup and heels. It's not going to go over well.
You were running in heels at 3? Amen. That's impressive.
I'm very good. No, I mean, I did all of that behind closed doors. But then there were other things that I didn't, there are things that you just naturally gravitate towards. I did not want to play with the boys. I didn't want to go run around and get dirty and get fist fight and all that. Ugh. And I loved, I thought, I just sort of thought I was a girl, and then as I got older, I think I kind of realized I wasn't. And, I'm gay, whatever. But I think that if you compare that experience, and I know that some people will say, well, there is no such thing as transgender. It's just people who are gay and they're confused and then they transition and whatever. I don't think that's true. I think some people legitimately are born in the other biological body, and I think that there is a physical or a surgical remedy for that. So I don't know. To me, it's not that big of a leap. It's we both kind of share that gender, a certain amount of dysphoria, I think. Most gay people had that at least at some point in their life.
I think especially historically, when they didn't know what they were at that age, because you don't have the language to know what gay is. You're
Right.
like, okay, well, I'm attracted to boys, therefore by definition, I'm a girl. I mean,
Right.
that's just kid logic.
That's true. Yeah.
There's something. Well, also, if you like makeup, then that's also going to kind of,
Yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time.
We are?
Hold on. Relax. I got you. I got you. You're here from the Walkaway Campaign advocating people vote for Republicans. Can you think of a legitimate reason why someone would still vote for the Democrats?
I think that the Democrats have a very strong position on the declassification of the Bigfoot files and Bigfoot, Nessie, Abominable. There's all of them. And the only people who are really willing to talk about that and really lay it out on the table are the Democrats. I want to get to the bottom of it. Why aren't we talking about Bigfoot? Why aren't we talking about Nessie? I'm sick of it, and I want to know.
What was your favorite part of this interview?
I think just getting to have this very jovial conversation with you and sort of unburden myself a little bit about a few people who have stuck it to me over the last year, and I've kept my mouth shut.
You are welcome.